Welcome back to the Purpose podcast. Wow, Finding Purpose podcast. My name is Adam. I am your host. I'm so grateful that everyone was able to see my beginning of the year episodes, starting with my New Year's episode where I really talked about what I wanted to do with my upcoming year and pouring myself into the podcast. I hope you had the opportunity to listen to last week's episode. Last week's episode obviously did not have the aesthetics that we're looking at right now because it was filmed in Boca Raton at Pod Popula's Boca studio. What an amazing experience. And Larry Dix was just such an awesome person to be able to sit down with. I really hope that you all go in, listen, like, review, send me comments, whatever your heart desires. I'm always open to just your engagement and your support. I am so grateful for. Today, I got my friend Rob Costomiris here today. And a little thing about Rob, and I saw him at an event maybe it was last week. It was our mutual friend, Austin Glazer's 2-year anniversary for his business. He also has been featured on this podcast. But I went up to Rob and I go, listen, man, I really appreciate the support that you show me online, the love, the comments, everything. And I was like, that really means a lot to me. And it only made sense for me to invite him onto my podcast. Rob himself is an accomplished entrepreneur. He is president of the Mioym group. You do a lot of things, a lot of them with investments, real estate, but you've developed such a great reputation for yourself. Anybody who I talk about and I talk about you, great guy, relatable, the whole nine, man. And I'm really grateful to have you on because we've seen each other at events, but I don't think I've really gotten an opportunity to know you. So welcome, Rob.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And one thing I wanted to touch on is when you came up to me and you were like, thanks for supporting me and everything. I don't know if it was a year or so ago, but it was a while ago that I decided that instead of liking, and we were just talking about the Yankees, so I'm going to use this as a referral, instead of liking Aaron Judge's posts or, all these superstars who no one's going to notice anything and they're getting thousands, if not millions, likes and comments and stuff like that, I decided not to do that anymore. And I do like their posts. I'm not saying I don't, but I don't make a concerted effort to go after it. I like to go after people that are like you and I, that are either starting out or have something that's more beneficial to you. And, it means more to like and comment on your stuff because when I post, and I don't have nearly as many likes or anything as you do, but I'm starting to get traction. I'm starting to get a couple hundred, if not thousands of views. And I see I only have 10 likes. And I'm starting to get annoyed. And I'm like, why can't people just click that like button? Just click the like button. You don't have to comment. Just click the like button. So I think it means more when you engage with, I don't want to say small people because I don't consider you small.
In person.
Right. But also that way too. But it doesn't mean anything to the Aaron Judge. No offense, Aaron Judge, if you're listening. But it doesn't mean anything to him where you, and just the fact that you came up to me, I was like, oh, so it does work. It really
people
does
notice.
Work. Yeah, so
people notice. And I think it's just so cool that you do that. And it's almost like the concept of you can go to, Stop and Shop, or you can go to that small business owner in small business that butcher in your hometown,
right,
and get his meats and
right,
maybe pay a little bit extra, but because obviously he's not a corporation, but it's giving back to your community. And that's such a good metaphor to put it in a social media component where, yeah, you're right. These people who have millions and millions of followers and are guaranteed to get likes. Yeah. Or you can show love to the people who you see every day, not every day, but you see in the community doing good things. And I love that. And you know what? I'm going to adopt that strategy too.
It's funny. Because it wasn't until I started posting a few years ago that I realized that. I'm like, why can't people just like my stuff? And I was like, you know what? I'm going to start doing that. And I noticed a couple people that we have in common are just putting little emojis and stuff there. But it means a lot when I see people doing that. It may not mean whatever they're putting is just, random stuff. But it means a lot that they're posting, they're commenting on my stuff. And so I started doing it. So,
dude, it's great.
Yeah.
I kind of want to start from the beginning of the Rob Costomiris story. I know that you're from Westchester. Yeah. Just tell me about where you grew up and how that started. Then we'll just continue.
I grew up in a small town in New Jersey, Nutley, New Jersey. But apparently, I'm going to say good 80% of people I say that to are like, oh, I know where Nutley is, even if they're not from New Jersey.
I've heard it.
It's so crazy. It's just a little town. average middle class town, and a lot of people have heard of it. I don't know why, but I mean, we were pretty good in sports for a while and everything.
Really?
But yeah, we were pretty decent for who we were. I mean, my graduating class, I had 120, 130 people in. I tell that to people, and they're like, "I've had that in classes." I'm like, "What?"
That's wild.
Yeah, my friend has kids in White Plains, and they're saying there's like 3, 4, or 5, 600 people in a class, if not 1,000. Like some classes. Oh, I can't even imagine that.
That's wild. Yeah. So that's like a really small community.
Oh, tiny.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm not a big fan of New Jersey, but it's okay. I drive through it, and there are places that I do like in Jersey.
It's only because you don't know New Jersey.
It is because Jersey people love Jersey.
Yeah,
you're right. It's probably because I just don't know New Jersey. I drive through it, and
probably drive on the turnpike, right?
Sometimes the Garden State Parkway.
Right. Well, but I'm just saying, most people go down and they're like, it's the armpit. I'm like, because you see all the factories. But if you just go in a little bit, listen, New Jersey has the beaches. This is all within an hour drive.
Yeah.
Beaches, mountains, forests, lakes, whatever you want. New Jersey has everything.
You're right. You're probably right.
And I don't work for the state.
I got to give Jersey a fair shot, I guess. I think you're right about that.
But I get the misnomer that we get, especially with the Jersey Shore, which I love those guys.
That's so funny. So like growing up in Jersey, in a smaller town, what takeaways from like living in Jersey in that environment, like from your youth, do you remember?
Because it was a small town, everybody was in everybody's business. Like you knew everybody, like the popular kids, what I called the burnouts and everything. So, but I was friends with everybody. I never, I never, I wasn't best friends with everybody, but I was friends with everybody. And I always said that I wanted to go out and do something else. I didn't know what that was, but I just didn't want to stay in the town because everybody was in your business at all times. So that I knew I wanted to get out, and I didn't go to school. I went to a year of school, and it wasn't for me. And I got a job on Wall Street, and as soon as I started making money, I moved into the city.
Okay.
And that was like,
what was that transition like?
That it was like a natural. So I grew up in high school, as a quasi athlete. I wouldn't call myself an athlete. And then I got into skating and snowboarding.
Huh.
So we would go to the city a lot to either skate or just hang out, and that's where I would spend all my time.
You were a skater boy?
I was, yeah.
Yeah, that's so funny.
Blonde
I never
hair,
would have thought.
Blonde hair, earrings, nose piercing, tongue piercing, everything.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What sports did you play?
Basketball and baseball.
Okay.
Baseball was the first one.
Rob is very tall.
Yeah, I am. And so I always knew I wanted to go into the city because I like the diversity.
Okay.
There was everything there, so I moved into the city and just loved it from there.
Yeah, I mean it's coming from small town and going to New York City. Like, what were the things that you gravitated to most? How old were you when you moved to the city?
23-ish.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
no, I'm sorry, 25. It took me a few years to start making money.
Okay. Were you early on in your career? What was the career that you had embarked on in the city?
I was a stockbroker. I was like 2 or 3 years in when I started making money. So there was people who started making money right out of the gates. It took me a little time to do it.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, and everyone obviously has their own journey. On that journey to like growing and you're in the city at 25, you become a stockbroker. You're no longer a stockbroker. What led you to becoming a stockbroker? Did you go to school for it? Or
no? I was DJing, and
oh my God, I got to know about this.
Yeah. I was DJing, having a blast doing it, but I just said I need something else because I was working Thursday to Sunday. I was making decent money. It wasn't like great money, but it was decent money. But all my friends were at work when I wasn't at work, and I was at work when they weren't. So when they were playing, I was working, and vice versa.
Would they come visit you?
Sometimes, but it's hard because I was doing weddings and stuff. Like if I was doing a club or a bar, I would have people come all the time. But when I was doing weddings, you really can't have somebody come.
That's cool though, being part of these people's moments.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
It was fun, but it was stressful.
Yeah.
Because like you have this responsibility that you have to get everybody up and dancing. But when you get it, it's fun.
What did you? Like, I feel like, I've had like a bunch of different jobs like throughout my career, and there's always something that I took out of it where I was like, all right, like I took that from that job and now I'm still applying it to the way I lead in this role. From those early experiences in the different jobs, what are some of the things that you feel that you still carry with you? And
So-
which jobs were they?
The DJing gave me a confidence to go out in front of random strangers and just have fun and be
Yeah.
myself. And, now I'm in real estate and I'm sitting in front of people and I'm presenting them investments. And so I could walk into any room and sit down with anybody and speak to them about anything at any time. Depending on what I get back is an entirely different story. But for the most part, I could sit down in front of anybody and just have a conversation with them. And that's something that I got from DJing. And I'm not, if you had met me before that, I was very shy. Like I was always friendly. I was always friendly with people, but I'm very shy. Very, very shy.
At the time when you were DJing, were you like really passionate about it? Were you like, oh, like this is awesome. Like I want to do this. Or was it just like, okay, like I kind of fell into it and.
So I was introduced to it through a friend and they're like, hey, we need somebody to help out. And it was $100 a gig I was getting. So I was working 3 or 4 hours, getting $100 at like, I think it was 18 when I started.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, 18 or 19, somewhere around there. And making $100. And I was like, wait, can I do more of these? And they're like, yeah. So I was like the little rat that they'd send out to they're like, here, take Costomiris. And so I'd go from one party to another party I would do 3, 4, 5, 6 parties in a weekend. So I was just like, how many $100 can I make? So then they were like, hey, why don't you do a party? I'm like, oh, I could never do that. Because I knew the programming already. I knew if it's a birthday party, you got to do this. If it's a wedding, you do this. And weddings and like bar and bat mitzvahs are like the top of that's the hardest things to do. So you start off doing like christenings and birthday parties and like, why don't you do one? You could make $200 to $500. This is back in the 90s.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait, I could like triple and quadruple what I'm making. They're like, yeah. So they send me out doing birthday parties and communions and like, so the 2 owners, one was Colombian, one was Puerto Rican. So you do a lot of Spanish parties. So they'd send me,
that sounds fun.
Whitey McWhitester, out to do these Spanish parties. But I knew all the Spanish music, when to play it, what has what type of beat, what's a salsa, what's a merengue, what's a bachata, like what the different rhythms are for the music. They started loving me. So I started doing one of, it was Orlando, one of his families. I would do every one of their parties.
Huh.
So it was so much fun to do them because it was so outside of what I grew up with, an Italian, household. So it was so weird for me.
Yeah.
But it was so much fun because of all the energy that was coming off the dance floor. It was so simple. Like I literally just put on certain music and everybody would come to the dance floor. And then I go into weddings and bar and bat mitzvahs where it's more controlled environment. It's not as open. You can't be as creative, but you can be as creative. It's just a different way. You have to start slowly, get the old people up. Then you got to get, you got to get everybody and then you get the younger people. And it's funny how you do it. And then a bat mitzvah or a bar mitzvah is just chaos.
I had one. My mom's side's Jewish. I had a bar mitzvah. We had a wild time.
It's complete. For you as the guest, you have fun. But as it is utter when the kids are dancing or playing or whatever it is
Playing
you're doing.
Coke and Pepsi.
Right,
Those things,
The parents are sitting down and then they expect the parents to get up, the kids to sit down. So you have to coordinate all this. And then you're working with the whole, I didn't
even think about that.
It is complete chaos, but it goes by like that. It's so, it's boom, 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 done.
That's so funny. I mean, like the level of production that goes into these events.
Oh my God.
And like I work in production now, so it's kind of crazy. What it's so funny because I don't know what it is, but I've had a lot of Italians on my show. I've had Fazio, I've had Fred Camillo, I had Spindler, I had Tony Peck. I guess, Italians like me. But, I want to talk about that because I love the Italian culture. What from your culture do you love the most? That's such a general question.
No, it's not. It's
there's just so many things I love.
Number one, so I'm gonna say the food, but it's not the food. It's what comes with the food. It's like so we grew up. My parents were divorced, so we would go to my father's on the weekend, and then we'd either go to my aunt's or my grandmother's house on a Sunday, and always have Sunday dinner. So it was like not a thing. It was just, it was a thing, but you never questioned it. Is what I'm trying to say, and like as I was growing up, I didn't understand it. I was like, oh, why do we have to come in from playing just to eat dinner? It's so stupid, but I've now taken it upon myself we sit down. It's not always Sunday for us because there's always stuff going on in my house, but it'll be Friday night, Saturday, Sunday. It's at least one or all nights on the weekends where all of us are sitting down and it's just a sense of family. And, whether you're complaining or you're talking about your week or whatever, you're just sitting down and getting together. And I really do appreciate that. And although it is about the food being good, it's not always about the food.
I mean, the
It's
food
about
is always good. I'm
It's
sure.
about what comes with
Yeah.
the food.
It's so funny because, yeah, it's about the tradition. And I love like being like my best friend, his family is big Italian family. And, you know, I spent Christmas Eve with them this year and it was like, it's just such the energy in the room. The food's always great, but it's definitely always like an afterthought to the jokes, to the laughs,
Yeah.
to the banter, to the making fun of, poking fun at someone. And it's that environment. Did you come from a big family?
I wouldn't say big, but definitely not small.
Yeah.
Here's another thing. When I met my I was gonna say now wife, as if I have 7 of them. My wife. So my grandparents had died. We met in October. My grandparents had died in December, and so I was like, oh, I gotta go to the wake and everything. And so she comes to, I think, the first night, and so she comes in and she's like, so can I ask you this? And I'm like, why are you whispering? So my father comes over, and I think she had met them before, but we weren't really like official, like she didn't know my family yet.
Yeah.
So my father comes over and he cracks a joke or something. And funny story, my grandparents actually died 59 minutes apart. And so it was like a double funeral. So he comes over and he's like, hey, do you think that they're like talking to each other because they're head to head? My father's saying this about his parents. He's like, and my wife's right there. She was my girlfriend at the time. Something like this. He's like, do you think that they're like talking to each other as they're sitting there head to head? And I was like, that's kind of funny. Do you think they're looking at each other saying like, why'd you do this or why'd you do that? My wife's sitting there with her jaw on the floor going, how could his parents just died? So then the next, it was the day of the funeral. My uncle comes, he's from Virginia, and he comes up. I guess it's where they bring the caskets up in this funeral home. It's on the 2nd floor. And my aunt, his mother, was in a wheelchair, so they're taking the elevator up. But apparently, I did not know this. In funeral homes, it's a thing. They put like this little dome on it so that the floor opens up and you just can come right off.
I didn't know that.
Right. So he's coming up this lift, and the floor, we're just sitting there looking at this. The floor opens up and he comes up and he goes, Jesus has arrived.
Oh my God.
So she's sitting there and, my wife's got this whole sad demeanor because somebody just died, like most normal people do. Not my family. And so he's like, Jesus has come through the floor. I have arrived. Here I am. This is my uncle.
Jesus.
And it's his aunt and uncle who passed away. So like he, you would think he'd be sad too. And
yeah,
no. So the whole time for the wake, it's loud, it's obnoxious. People are making jokes, so much so that the owner of the funeral home goes to my father. My father's a doctor in Hoboken, or was, and the funeral director. He's like, hey, Bobby, business is a little slow. You think you could, take care of me a little bit? My wife's girlfriend at the time's like, what the hell is wrong with you guys? My father's like, you got to make jokes about death. If you're not making jokes about death, what are we doing here? So we had left, and, my wife had to leave early from the funeral because I didn't really know her. So she left, and my father goes, how does she think it was? I was like, I think she thinks we're batshit crazy.
Yeah.
And she's like, your family's so loud. It's awake, but nobody's quiet. I was like, oh, yeah, we're not a quiet family. It's not how it is. You got to speak.
So she obviously states she obviously noticed that you are a family full of love.
Oh, she loved it.
Yeah.
She loved because we weren't being obnoxious.
Yeah.
It's just the way we were.
It's just not what she expected.
Not at all. No.
Yeah.
No. Because I've been to obviously funerals of her, for her family. It's quiet. I get so uncomfortable. I'm like,
yeah.
So we have to be quiet. This is so weird.
Yeah.
They're dead. They're not.
They can't hear us. They can't hear us anymore.
There's people crying. Not at my family.
Oh, that's awesome. And I think that is reflective of how you want to live your life, man. Like anytime I see you, you're always just super friendly and you smile.
Really?
And,
it's good.
And you just seem like you have a good time. I don't know if you are.
Yeah.
But you're always ready to engage. And that's why I made it a point to come over to you at that event. I want to talk about you finish DJing, you end up stockbroker, jumping into Wall Street. Was this the beginning of your integration into wealth and into financial?
Yeah, my career on Wall Street was there were several in there. I mean, it wasn't several; it was all one. But I did it for 21 years, and I started off as a stockbroker. I kind of transitioned away from, as you can say, slinging stock and selling it to become more of a financial advisor. Go after whole portfolios, talk about people's wealth as opposed to selling selling them stock. And I saw a nice little transformation in my business. It kind of helped my business. It slowed it down a little bit. It wasn't so transactional. And then later on in my career, myself and a couple other individuals started a full securities broker dealer. So yes, it was, I had never known there was that type of wealth out there that I was seeing on Wall Street. Like, they're like, ask them for $500,000, and then I'm saying, oh, let me see your statements for your portfolios. And people were having millions of dollars in investment, just in investments.
Yeah.
And I was like, I legitimately didn't know money like this. So
yeah,
it was my first foray into.
What was that like? I mean, like just kind of seeing that for the first time. Like, how did that like make you feel? And was it just where you saw, hey, listen, I could build a career on this, and I also can make a lot of money? Just given the background and being in like that service component. So what was that like?
So because I started off as a stockbrokers are more like, hey, I have XYZ stock, let's buy, 1,000, 5,000, 10,000 shares or whatever. I started to see, it was a slow, gradual process.
Yeah.
It was hard for me to grasp, but just as you see in like Wall Street or Boiler Room, the movies, like there's so much going on. And I know those are two negative movies, but there's so much going on in the, and you don't really see it too much anymore. It's very quiet now. Like if I were to walk into one, I'd be like, oh, look at this. But there's so much going on. You don't really have time to think and react. It's, I had good managers in my entire career that I was guided properly and I was shown the right things to do. Like first it was just selling, then it was managing the wealth, and then it was kind of putting both together. And then that's when my career really took off. So I know I didn't really give you a full answer.
I get what you're saying. I mean, like there were processes involved. There were mentors also involved. And you kind of just like let it unfold. And
I didn't really think about it too. There wasn't a time where I was like, what do I do with it? It was just, I was taught what to do, how to do it. And I just did it.
When you were like growing, you talked about like you had good managers. I'm a big proponent of like having good mentors and kind of watching how one person moves. And if you like the way they move, kind of move the same way they do. Was there mentors throughout this, like who, I guess to ask you directly, like who are your mentors, like growing up? So and evolving in your career also.
So Brandon Godoris always talks about like his mentors and everything. And I've never had an actual, like somebody like, hey, what do I do for this? I'm at this point in my career, I'm thinking of this. I never really had that. I've had people that I've leaned on and learned a lot from. Like one of my managers, when I first started out, actually became my partner in the broker dealer. So it was very a big moment. It wasn't a big moment because I don't really make big deals about moments, but it was a big thing for me. I was like, wow, I can't believe I'm partners with this guy now. So it was a big thing for me because this guy was the guy that I learned from. He was a top account opener in the entire firm. Him and his partner were the two biggest guys in the firm. So I just watched what they did what they did and followed their lead. But because of 9/11, I kind of separated from them because our office was destroyed. And then, I always kept in touch with them. We'd always be at some of the same things, same functions. And then, I think I left them in 2002 or 2001-ish, I guess. And then, 2011, we're starting a broker dealer together. So it was pretty.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I mean, you're right. Brandon does talk about his mentor a lot. I mean, I look at a mentor as anyone who, is doing what I'm doing and I want to do what they're doing. So I emulate what they're doing.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean I like call them every day and I'm like bouncing, like talking to them. There are mentors who don't know that they're my mentors.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where it's like, oh, like that's how like they're, like I have podcast mentors. My podcast mentors have never met me. Like, I like Jay Shetty a lot, like, so at the end of the day, it's like, not really, it's more like inspiration, I guess. But I mean, I like how you said that you don't make big deals out of big moments. I would love to talk a little bit about that. Like talk about your perspective there.
Yeah. I don't know why. My wife's like, you should celebrate your small wins a little bit more. And a lot of people have told me that, but I don't. I think it's something, I think it's that worker bee mentality in me. It's like, you have to do X, Y, Z to get to the end. It's, and it's just a part of the process. So it's like, why am I celebrating this? That's just me.
Yeah.
And there's parts of me that's like, well, maybe I should, go to dinner and celebrate this. Like, it's like, but I don't have that mentality.
Were your parents like that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, you shouldn't be proud of what you do. You should just keep moving. My grandfather was like, he was like he was an electrical engineer, and you never heard about anything he did. He just did.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like that's like the old school mentality where it's like, listen, like that's your job, or that's your job. Like,
so my daughter and I went to Florida this past weekend. She had a softball camp and everything. And so we're going through the airport. It was just her and I going through the airport. And I was like, so how do you feel about people who clap for when the pilot lands the plane? She's like, I think it's so crazy. I'm like, yeah, right. It's your job. What's the alternative? You ain't clapping.
Yeah.
You're dead. So it's like going to your accountant and be like, hey, you did my taxes. Thank you. So I always think it's crazy. So we land the plane and, some people clapped, and she's like, what is wrong with it? She's 15. Yeah. What is wrong with these people? Like, why are they clapping? The guy just does his job.
Dude, I always thought that was so weird too. I just don't get it because probably because I'm also like, this flight sucks. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like I'm not gonna clap for this pilot.
Yeah.
But like it is kind of a weird thing. Maybe for like a long flight.
Yeah, but even so, he did his job.
Clap.
Yeah. Like
I'll give him a golf clap.
Like when they land a plane, it's kind of like, all right, you did your job. Congratulations. And listen, I put pilots up on a pedestal. They're flying a couple hundred people at one time, and they get you there safely. So they do a great job. But at the same time, you just did your job.
That's so funny.
Right?
Another thing, like, I mean, we're talking about planes, and I kind of like really feel bad for this segue, but you also mentioned 9/11.
Yeah.
I kind of want to talk about that because that was like obviously a major turning point in your career, but also like your life, and being from Jersey, now living in Westchester, like that affected like our area. Like, honestly, haven't really ever had a conversation about that with someone who was like kind of there,
Yeah, I was walking through the streets.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a pretty crazy story. We would get to the office at between 7 and 7:30. We had to be on the phones at 8 every morning. So we were at 22 Cortlandt Street, which I don't know if you know. You know where Century 21 is downstairs?
Yeah.
I say downstairs as if they're here. Century 21, for those that don't know, is right across the street from the World Trade Center, legitimately right across. And our office faced the World Trade Center. Every morning we'd keep the blinds down because at 8 a.m. or somewhere around that time, the sun would come over, reflect off the World Trade Center and come into our office.
Okay.
So blinds were down till about 8:30, 9 o'clock. Our building shook. It was like swaying. If you've ever been in a New York City building in the middle of a wind, they're all meant to sway. So our building was swaying aggressively. And then all of a sudden you heard what I now know is the engines thrusting, but you don't know what it is when you're in the middle of a work day. And then 80% of our office ran out. Myself and the individual, this Eddie, who's a good friend of mine, walked over to the window and pulled the blinds up. Now we were on the 21st floor or 22nd floor. I think the first plane hit up on 100 or something like that, and pulled the blinds up. The one, from what I gather, when I pulled the blinds up is when the plane was hitting, and there was a big fireball coming out. Mind you, it's 80 floors higher. I don't know about you. I've never seen a fireball coming, towards me. So it seemed like it was right there, but mind you, it was 80 floors up. Yeah. So it's, my mind is probably exaggerating it immensely. And you just saw a fireball coming out the other side of the building. We're like, what the? Even the windows were even flexing like a little bit. We're like, what the hell is going on?
From the heat.
Heat explosion? I don't know. But again, this is 80 floors higher than where we are. I'm trying to give you the space that it is. Like it's a whole. Some buildings aren't even 80 stories, but this is how far away it was. But when you're in the situation, kind of feels like it's right there. So then at that point, I went downstairs. I'm going to try and make it fast because this is a pretty long story. Go downstairs. We're looking up at what the hole is. And thousands of people that were on, is it Greenwich Street? I think it's Greenwich Street. And thousands of people out there. You hear from small prop plane to missile to bomb to everything's going on. And I just go to my friend and I go, hey, we gotta get out of here. He's like, no, we gotta figure what this is. What we gotta figure out what's going on. I'm like, for what? What's the benefit of us staying here? All of a sudden you start seeing like little dots falling. And as it comes down halfway, it turned out to be people. And there was, I think it's building 7 or the hotel was here. And they were falling between the North Tower, I don't remember, that's 1 or 2, and it fell behind there. And to this day, I distinctly know the sound of what a body hitting the ground is, the sound. Like I'll never forget it. And then we saw a couple of them fall. And then finally I just said, I go, we got to get out of here. We start walking. We're next to, I don't know if it's the Millennial Hilton, but it's that thin black building that's down there. And we're walking on that side of the street. It was the south side of the street. We hear the same noise again. And it's the second plane hitting into I didn't know what it was at the time, hitting into the tower again. All of a sudden there's debris going over our heads. Thank God we were on the south side because we were against the buildings, and everything's flying over our head so close that somebody across the street got hit in the back of the head. Somebody at the end of the street got hit like somewhere. I don't remember if it was the front or the back, but I just remember seeing it. My friend was like, oh, we got to stop and help him. I was like, I don't know what to do with this person. So we just kept walking. Yeah. And long story short, we were walking. I said to him, I was like, hey, I know we're going to your parents' house because they live right across the bridge in Brooklyn. I go, but do you have cash on you? Because I'd left all my money in my drawer. And he's like, yeah, but you're coming with me. I was like, I know, but just in case we get separated. Lo and behold, we're on Nassau Street, which is a couple blocks away from where the World Trade Center is. The scaffolding we're under starts swaying. Like I've never seen scaffolding. I now know from one of my good friends who's an engineer. He said that's exactly what scaffolding is supposed to do. It moves as if it looks like it's going to fall, but it doesn't fall. And by the way, it didn't fall. Mm-hmm. So when the first tower was falling, my friend bolts out from one of the little entry. You know, when scaffolding's up, you only have like that 1,000 feet to get out, or else you got to wait till the next one. This small Spanish woman is coming in as he's going out, and and when I say small, I'm 6'5". She must have been 5'1", 5'2". She's pushing me down into the subway, screaming in Spanish. I had no clue what she was screaming. And I was like, lady, I don't want to go underground. I want to stay up. I got to get out of here. And she's just screaming. She pushed me all the way down the stairs. Like I almost fell down the stairs. That's how aggressive she is. Yeah. So if we have Spanish mothers, I would never mess with them. I'll tell you that much. So she pushes me all the way down. I come out. There's a cloud around me. The dust was there. I didn't know what was going on. I tried breathing. And if you've ever breathed with like saran wrap or plastic around your mouth, you know, we've all done it as kids. You try and breathe it in and just, that's how it was trying to breathe that stuff in. So wrapped something around my face. I forgot what it was. Started walking towards the Brooklyn Bridge. That's where it cleared up.
That's after the first tower went down.
Yeah. And then I said, I just got to get out of here. I had no clue what happened, by the way. Like none. Like I have zero clue. There was just this cloud the ground was shaking. There was a cloud of dust. That's all I knew.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I got to get off this island. Whatever's going on, I got to get off. And as I'm walking up, there's people like, it's literally like Armageddon, like people around radios, around cars, listening to what's going on. They're like, hey buddy, you want to listen to what's going on? I'm like, nope, got to get out of here. And I made it to Tribeca. I was going across because I had to go up to 39th Street where the ferry was up there. And I heard the same crumbling and the ground was shaking again. I turned around. I saw I think it was the North Tower at this point, just collapsing. And I was like, oh my God, this is like, what is going on? I just kept walking, went to 39th Street, got on the ferry, went home. And by the way, that was the day that Jay-Z released his Blue album. And I know that because when I got to the ferry, there was no terminal at the time.
Blue album or Black album?
Blue album. Google it when we get off. Because it amazes me how I still remember this, but there was a line 2 blocks long and it wrapped around 2 or 3 times. Like it went down, up, and back again, 2 blocks. But I didn't know what the line was for. So I walked straight up and this guy's handing out I don't know if you remember back then, they would hand out CDs to promote stuff. Remember?
Holy God.
So he has a stack like this guy, and he goes like this to me, nods his head. And I just shrugged my shoulders. I had no clue what I looked like. I didn't know I was covered in dust. So I go, yeah. So we just walked right into the ferry. Now, mind you, all these people are pissed off. They're like, hey, you can't cut the line. So a guy in front of me turns around. He's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. He's one of those dust people. He's coming from downtown. Let him in, let him in. So then they're going to this guy. What? I didn't even meet him. And they're like, but he's got to go. He can't cut the line. I was like, that's my cousin. What are you doing? Come on. So he comes with me. He's like, oh, thank God. Thank you so much. I appreciate you allowing me to come in. Because the line, had to be at least an hour, 40 minutes, the line. Get right onto the ferry. And he's like, here, you want to take an album? I was like, I guess, sure. What is this?
He's
like,
a Jay-Z Blue album.
So then it turned out that he lived the next town over from me. So he gave me a ride home. And it wasn't until 1:30 that I had spoken to anybody in my family because my cell phone was in my drawer in the office. So when I called my house, my brother was bartending at the time, so he was home. He's like, "Oh my God, mommy and daddy are calling like crazy. They didn't know where you were. They didn't know anything about it." And he's like, "Everybody's freaking out. Like they think you're dead." I was like, "Tell them I'm alive and I'm coming home."
That's wild.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny because you were like, I don't know why I remember all this because, like, I mean, how wouldn't you remember that day?
Oh,
like,
no.
Like, so vividly.
I remember that day. Like I could close my eye, like on the anniversary, whenever it comes on TV and they're putting images up there, it's as if it was yesterday. I could like close my eyes and see the entire day. It's crazy.
How did experiencing that day, like I was so up close, like change your perspective
On what?
in life, on anything, on just like
I realized that I could handle most situations that you put me into. Like I don't question stuff. Like I know I can handle a lot of situations. I didn't freak out once. I don't know if it's because I'm so dumb and I didn't think about it. Like I'm being dead serious when I say that. Like I didn't like sit there and be like, "Oh, what are the repercussions to what's going on?" I was just like, I got to get off this island. But then other people would say, "You didn't help anybody. You didn't stop." People have said that to me. Like you didn't stop to help those people, but I just didn't understand what I was going to do to help those people. Like I really did. Maybe I should have helped them a little bit further down the road, but like,
well, it's also like when you're in that situation, it's like, I don't know, what would you have done? Like no one knows what they're going to do in a situation like that unless they've been in it.
Yeah.
You know, and that's also like a huge part. Like you did what you did and that's it, you know, period. Like you survived it.
Yeah.
You know, at the end of the day, like I think it also goes down to like how like even you are when it comes to like we talked about earlier where it was like, you know, like I don't get too high, I don't get too low. Like, you know, like people tell me I should celebrate more. It's like, why?
Yeah.
And that's you're very like, you're probably the most even tempered guest, like even person I've had on my podcast, frankly.
Yeah. I try not to freak out in situations. I try to like sit there and be like, all right, what do we have to do to fix this? Like, well, one of my mottos with my guys when they're like, "Oh, we got a problem," I'm like, "There's no problems. There's only solutions. Let's figure it out." Then I heard a good one too. Somebody said to me the other day, he's like, I walked into it when he was younger. I forgot what he's doing. He's like, I walked into my boss's office and I said, "We have a problem." And he's like, "Do we have a problem or do we have a situation? Because situations we could fix, but problems we probably can't fix." And then he's like, "Oh no, it's a situation." He was like, "Okay, so it's fixable. So let's figure it out." And I was like, "That's great. I'm taking
that. Is great.
Yeah.
That is so great. And that's such a good like mentality to have.
Yeah.
And that's the mentality you have.
I'm 100% stealing that.
Yeah. So like, Rob, like you've painted like that story was wild, but it also is like, it's just like boom, boom, boom. And it's like, you said it earlier when you were talking about your early career and how it evolved. You're like, you know, I just react, man. I just react.
Yeah.
So I want to kind of pivot into like, you know, your family and, you know, you have children and being a dad and how like being a dad, having kids, do you just react?
I don't know, but when my daughter's my oldest and we're in Lenox Hill Hospital in the city and I come from all boys. I have some female cousins, but like I wasn't really around them all the time to know all the girl stuff. Like I always saw my parties and stuff. So it was myself, my brother, my father. Mind you, I come from a divorced family, so it was just the guys on the weekend, right? Go to my cousins, male cousins, like so. It's always go play baseball, football, basketball, whatever. You know, go running. It's always manly man stuff, right? And so we have my daughter, and it's like, so do you have kids?
I don't.
Okay, so when you first have a child, like you have an option of you could, feed them and do everything like right after they're born, or they'll do a lot of it to kind of ease you into it. So my wife had a C-section, so she's like, can we have them do it? Am I a bad mother? I'm like, no, that's what they're here for. Let's utilize this while we can.
Sorts of shit.
Let's utilize them while we can, because we got to take this thing home with us. So it was the next day. I stayed till probably like 12:30 the first night, and then I came back. I was back by like 7:30, 8, because I was just so excited. And they bring her in. We had fed her. She had slept and everything, and then she's still crying. And I was like, well, what the hell's wrong with her? She just ate. She just woke up. Why is she still crying? My wife's like, my wife must have been 6 shades of white. And she's like, I think she needs to be changed. I was like, oh, okay, let's change her. Changed her, everything. Boom, boom, boom. I just did common sense, like how to clean up a female. I didn't know how to do it.
Yeah.
And because guys are a lot easier.
Yeah.
So I do it. And, she went right back to sleep, my daughter. Like as soon as I changed her, like legitimately, like as soon as I was done, buckled her up and put her back in her little blanket and everything, out like a light. And so I'm standing there looking out the window, Lenox Hill. My wife's like, how are you staying so calm through this? I go, do you know how I stay so calm? She's like, yeah, how do you stay so calm? I go, look at all these idiots that have kids. How many people screw up their kids? I know I could do a better job than 99% of those people out there, and I probably won't even screw her life up somehow. And she goes, you're pretty confident to say that? I go, just look at some of the people that raise kids. I'm sure I could do a better job than them.
That's so funny. And that must have given your wife a little peace of mind.
I guess that made her feel a little more comfortable. Mind you, there was a lot between then and now my youngest is 13 and my daughter's 15. There's a lot of times where I didn't know what I was doing. So let's not take it like I know what I'm doing. But
what was the biggest challenge you've seen as a father?
So my son has some special needs. He's, this is the first time I'm talking about it on a podcast. He has ADHD, which everyone's, I have it too, but he has like a very bad case of it. Mind you, he's perfectly manageable, but it's not a regular like you or I have ADD. He has an intellectual disability. So thank God for my wife, and she now runs a company that deals with this, helping parents transition, because schools don't tell you. The first thing we thought was like, why can't the school like help us out? They're not like, hey, I think your son has this. They don't. You have to figure it out for a parent. So the entire time from when we figured this out, my wife figured it out, not me, till now, and still ongoing. It hasn't stopped, but it's very frustrating to see them struggle, and like you just want to fix it, but you can't. You gotta handle what they're dealing with and what they're working with, and then you got to make it not as easy, but as comfortable for them to get through life and everything. And then the next thing is like, I look at myself as young, but you got to figure out like, is he going to be, and we think he's going to be, by the way, but is he going to be independent, when we pass? Like we have to get him to that point. And he is like, half and half. I say half his disability is being a boy because he's just dumb.
That's funny.
Yeah. But that is one of the hardest things for me is like, you can't just snap your finger and fix it. It's not like, there's no fix actually. You have to work within his world. Yeah.
And that has to be, challenging, but it's like also having like the acknowledgement of that, hey, like I gotta like jump into his way of thinking and his way of processing and like accept that.
Yeah.
And that's part of it. When you have this beautiful family and you have this business in Mioym. I want to talk about the early days of Mioym because now I see what you're doing.
It's not my company. I came
You're president, right?
Yeah. No, but I just want to make it clear. I didn't start it.
Yeah.
But it's now, I'm very, very, very involved with everything. So
were you with them in the beginning stages?
No. It started in 2008, but they were only working with 2 and 3 large investors. They only had a few people working with them. Now we're up to 29 or 30 people working with us now. So we're growing just in a different way.
Did they brought you on as president?
No. I was just brought on as like a capital raiser. And
nice. So let's talk about your career with them. And I want to just, it's so funny because you're so even, and you start with Mioym, and now you've worked your way to where you're in a leadership position as a president. What do you think were the skill set that like brought you to where you were and able to allow you to elevate?
So when I was on Wall Street, my business partner and I, we always had people working with us, and we always grew teams. And whether it was one person that was working with us or 20 some odd people, we'd always have teams. And we'd always train people, help them get their businesses up and running, and put them out there just to be independent for themselves. So it was a natural thing for me just to build a team. I haven't gotten to that point where I have 20 people myself under me, I'm saying.
Yeah.
But I do want to get to that point where I'm actually hiring to get to that point. But it was just one day, I had 4 people in the office and then like 3 people outside the office. And then my partner, Mark, calls me up and he's like, hey, it's 7 o'clock in the morning. So I made a big decision. I've been dwelling on this for weeks and everything. And you're just going to have to take what I'm about to give you. So in my head, I'm brushing my teeth. I'm going, oh Christ, what now? And he's building it up. He's like, so are you ready for what I'm going to tell you? I'm like, sure. He's like, I'm making you president. I was like, wait, what? I'm like, you serious? I'm like, why? He's like, well, you're doing everything. You're putting yourself out there. You are the face of the company. So I want you to have the title to go along with it and everything. So I was like, oh, thank you. I appreciate that. And he's like, that's it. That's it. So here we go with I go, what do you want me to do? I go, you want me to cheerlead? Like, I don't know what to do. Dude. Yeah. And he's like, I would think I'd get more of a reaction from you. I was like, no, I really do appreciate it. I do. I 1000% really do appreciate this. I was like, it's big, it's huge. And, I go, does it come with a pay raise? And he goes, absolutely not. I go, oh, Jesus Christ.
But hey, I mean, that's awesome to like have that feeling where like people like recognize.
Yeah.
Like
it really was good.
Like who you are and what you stand for. And, you know, obviously there's you don't get that without like having character.
Right.
You know, so, you know, I want to talk about character because, you know, what does that mean to you? Like when it's in every phases of your life? Because you're in the people business and, character is important.
Yeah. I try to convey to everybody and investors, whoever it is that I'm speaking to, that I care, but at the same time I'm selling. So it's, you know I have to go against that every single day is, you know, am I that used car salesman or am I somebody that cares? And they don't know when they first meet me. It's like nobody, I just got that from somebody who we network with. And he's like, hey, I have some money I'd like to invest. He's like, it's between you or a very good friend of mine. He goes, the very good friend of mine, they don't manage the company. You manage the company. He goes, but he has my trust, but he doesn't have control over it where you do. And I was like, well, listen, I go, my trust is everything. And if I break my trust with you, we run in such a small little circle that it's going to ruin it for everybody. So I didn't feel the need to tell him that. But at the same time, because he brought it up, that trust was such a big thing, I felt the need to tell him that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, one thing that you said is like, sometimes I'm in these meetings and, you know, like I need to be this character, but then like, I think about the stigma of being a salesman also. And, you know, one thing that I've been in that position too, where it's like, people know I'm, you know, like I'm a salesperson also. Yeah. And now I just kind of take solace in that knowledge. They know I'm a salesperson.
Yeah.
They know why I'm here.
Well, you want to hear something funny?
So a lot of times it's really just about selling me.
So you want to hear something funny? It was about halfway through my career. I was doing very well financially, making money. And I was out at a bar with somebody and he was like, you know, he's like, you say you're a financial advisor. I was like, yeah. He goes, you know, all we are is salesmen. And like, at first that like hit me and I was like, oh, wait, yeah, we are. And then it bothered me, but then I embraced it. I was like, yeah, we're salesmen. Why does it have to be a bad thing? It doesn't have to be a bad thing. And then now when I sit in front of people and I talk to them, I try to educate them more than anything.
Yeah.
If people want to be sold, I'll 1000% sell them, but I try not to. I try to educate them, say, hey, this is, you know, what we have. When you have questions, let me know. So it's, you know, obviously the sales aren't as consistent, but
yeah, no, I get what you're saying.
I think they're more meaningful that way.
I mean, I think everyone's a salesman. It's just who's better about it.
Oh, I agree with that.
You know what I mean?
Doctors themselves are salesmen because they got to tell you why their diagnosis is better than the guy down the street.
Yeah. And like, I think if you have good people skills, then sales is a huge part of it, whether you even know you're doing it or not. And what I mean by that is even in conversations that I have that have nothing to do with like my occupation or anything, I meet someone at a restaurant or a bar or whatever, and I'm talking to them. In order for me to carry on a conversation like you led with, where you can always just pick up a conversation, that is sales.
Yeah.
Because I want them to be comfortable talking to me. You know, obviously here in the podcast, having guests come on, like I got to sell my podcast by also being able to have meaningful conversations that impact and reach people who are going to be like, oh, like, you know, I want to talk to Adam.
Yeah.
So like, that's like the biggest part, but like life is sales, frankly.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
And, you know, and I found a purpose in sales, and I feel like you found a purpose in your career because when you think about it, that you're helping people, then the job becomes fulfilling. I do want to talk about purpose with you, obviously, even though, the two words behind us. Where would you say your purpose is grounded in? And we'll just start there.
So when I first started on Wall Street, I point blank, I was a young guy. I was single. I just met my wife at the time. So I didn't really have purpose. I wanted to make money. All I wanted to do was make money.
You're a finance bro in your 20s.
Yeah. I just wanted, it was before it was finance bro. So I got to say that. But we were running around Manhattan, like spending money, like it was going out of style. And I didn't have a purpose other than making money and being successful. And it wasn't until, I had a family and everything. And then I realized like, there's more to this than the money. It's, it's like spending time with the family, but you need to make the money, not directly, but it helps when you have more money coming in to take some time off, or you could leave work early because things are going well. And it's that fine line you have, but it's, I always want to be there for my kids for everything that they do. Because my parents weren't, and by no means am I complaining. I'm not, but I come from a divorced family where my mother would come to my games during the week if she could make it. She was a school teacher, single mother. And then my father would come on the weekends if he could make it. If it was early in the morning, my game, nobody would come to it because, they were working on the weekends. And it was weird because my mother would never come to my games on the weekend and my father would never come to the games during the week, but yet I'm still their kid. So like, why, just because I wasn't with you, you couldn't come like that. Me and my brother talked about that a couple of weeks ago. We're like, wasn't that weird? He's like, I never looked at it that way. Like, yeah, right.
That's so funny.
I make a concerted effort to go to all my kids' stuff because I didn't have that. And again, I am not complaining because I think my life was great. Like I really do. It's just something that I took away from my childhood. So my purpose now is to try and give my family whatever it is that I didn't have. And I didn't really come from money. Like I was not poor. By no means was I saying that, but money wasn't a thing. So I want to make sure that my kids and wife, family they don't have to worry about any of that.
Yeah. I mean, money isn't the purpose, the freedom is great.
No, but it helps. And somebody told me this a long time ago and I took it as money. He's like, money doesn't solve problems, but it does solve 99% of your problems.
Hey, listen, absolutely.
Like when you don't have to worry about bills and everything.
It relieves, it's relieving.
Yeah.
It's relieving for sure. Like I love how you always, you keep mentioning family, and you mentioned your daughter, you mentioned your son. How has being a father added purpose to your life?
My kids teach me more than
and a husband. I mean, listen, you talk about your wife too. I don't want to leave her out of here. Like obviously, like you talked about.
I do whatever my wife tells me.
There you go. Hey, listen, I hear that's the best thing to do.
It took me a while to learn that too. I've learned more through my kids telling me when I'm screwing up more than I have like just on my own. So my kids do not hesitate to tell me when I'm doing something wrong. So, and I appreciate it. They're not sitting there criticizing me, but they're like, hey, when you said this, you why couldn't you say it differently? So I think I learned more from them than anything because it hurts when they say that to you. It's like, oh, really?
That's awesome. And
although they do say a lot of crazy things, so you can't take everything to heart.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I don't have kids, but like a lot of the times when I have parents on my show, I think about how I treated my parents, especially when they give, perspectives. I
apologize
like that.
to my parents, by the way. Yeah, my kids start getting a little. I was like, oh, sorry for that to you.
I had to apologize to both my parents, just in general. Yeah. After I kept having these conversations and like being like, you know what, like I must have been a pain in the ass. Yeah. I mean, I know I was a pain in the ass. Yeah. It's well documented in this podcast. But yeah, like it's crazy. I want to talk about just. Usually it's kind of like a rapid fire questions that I usually end with.
Hit me with
the one question I always ask is, what advice would you give to someone who is in a place where they're trying to find their purpose?
Just, it's not going to come to you. You have to find it. You got to keep going. You can't sit around and wait for it. You gotta just find it. It's, and I didn't know it right away that it was my family, but then it just became a part of me. Like That's what I was going to work for. That's what I was doing. That's what I was going to make the money for. And even when I was younger, that's what it was. I just put the purpose on the cash, the money, the financial aspect of it. But it was really so that I can give a life to whoever's around me and help people.
Yeah. I love that about you. And I love how, authentic you are, and, it's funny. I've been saying this throughout this entire conversation, just like the authenticity that you kind of resonate, just like with your presence, bro, like is something that I really, really admire about you.
Well, when I was on Wall Street, everybody was, I was never a salesman. I didn't know how to sell. It was a learned thing.
Yeah.
And I was trying to be like, I saw everybody. If this one guy, Mike, was very successful. He opened all his accounts and he was making money within 6 months of passing a Series 7. I was like, what the?
That's wild.
How's this guy making so much money so fast? I go, I got to be like him. So I tried to be like him. Then I tried to be like somebody else. But I was always the first one in, and I wasn't the last one out, only because I lived in Jersey and I had to catch the last train. But I was very close to one of the last people out. And so the gentleman who trained me, Eddie, he was always saying to me, and he's a little guy from the Bronx, right? And I'm the 6'5" guy, from Jersey. So we are totally different. So I was trying to take his style a little bit of doing stuff. And, cause I'm sarcastic. He was sarcastic. He would bust his clients' balls. So I would try and do the same thing. And then he said to me, he's like, hang up your phone. He goes, you can't be me. He goes, you have to be yourself. Always be yourself. And I didn't understand what it meant. And then, so finally I realized like how I am and to joke around with the people. Don't be so serious. Don't be such a tough guy. I'm not a tough guy. Don't be that tough guy. Like you don't have to be that. Once I realized who I was and I was being who I was being me when I was pitching people on the phones, I started opening more accounts. I started doing more business. And that's when I really took off. I took that into my life just to always be me and to always be, don't change for anybody, basically is what I've took away from that. And I've implemented it and it's been such a good, it's like a breath of fresh air, like when you're yourself, because you don't have to worry about who you are. And somebody, like if somebody sits there and makes fun of, go ahead, make fun of me. I don't even care.
Not me, I accept
yeah,
that.
it's me. Yeah. Like,
yeah.
Like, I was somewhere and somebody's like, oh, you're so white, by another white person. I go, I'm white. What else do you want me to be? Like,
it's like, duh.
What do you want me to be? I don't know how to be anything else. So it's
so funny, man. And, I think that's like such a good like message to close on because, your authenticity is a big reason why I wanted you here. I'd love for you to tell my audience the best way that they could reach you, connect with you. If you follow my man here, Mr. Costomiris will engage with your content as we led with, but he's been a great support from a distance for me, and I'm just so glad that we were able to have this conversation.
Yeah. I'm glad that I get, that I have that effect. It means a lot. And the fact that like everybody says you're nice. Oh, really? That's great. Not that I don't think I am. It's just, I don't try. It's
important for people to hear that.
Yeah. So at Rob with 2 B's _ Costomiris on Instagram, and then LinkedIn, just Robert Costomiris. Easiest way.
The pleasure. Or you can reach out to me. I'll connect you directly with Rob. If you got a lot of money, and you want to do some investments, I'll connect you with my guy Rob here.
Appreciate that.
And super grateful, man.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Oh, last thing I am going to add is I encourage everyone to hop onto Apple Podcasts, click that review button, give this some 5 stars, and reach out and connect with me directly. If there's a particular guest that you want me to connect you with, if you want to speak with me directly, I could send you over my Calendly link. But at the end of the day, building community is what we're all about. Thank you.